Consider Route 1 Fusion for your dealership's digital retailing. Customers can build vehicle financing options online with estimated payments, trade-ins, and you can even showcase optional protection products. Faster process, elevated sales, more satisfied customers. Visit route1.com/fusion to connect for a demo today.
Welcome to Daily Drive for Monday, April 20th, 2026. I'm Kellen Walker in Las Vegas. Today on the show, Ford's F-150 inventory crisis deepens months after a supplier fire. Pessimism is on the rise among auto execs, and German luxury brands hit pause on their Level 3 self-driving systems. Plus, we'll hear from a supply chain expert who says the Iran war is threatening helium supplies, and that could be a big problem for automakers.
This is not going to shut down the auto industry as a whole, but it may shift certain mix. It may delay the delivery of high-end ADAS systems.
Let's run through all the news you need to know to keep up in the auto industry. Ford and its retailers are still dealing with the fallout from a fire at an aluminum plant in New York more than 7 months ago. The fire disrupted production of the F-150, and things have not bounced back. F-Series sales fell 16% in the first quarter, and its market share in the full-size pickup segment dropped from 37% to 32% year over year. Ford's trying to boost production by 50,000 vehicles this year, but Rick Wainshill at Catalyst IQ says F-150 inventory has dropped 43% since the fire. We'll hear more about this story in a minute with our own Michael Martinez. If you're wondering how the auto industry is feeling in general right now, well, not great. The Automotive News Confidence Index dropped to 55.6 this quarter. That's its lowest since we started tracking it last summer. The Iran war, inflation, and spiking oil prices all have executives feeling nervous. We asked, what makes them optimistic about the next 6 months? The top answer? Nothing. Automakers took the biggest confidence hit, and one dealer summed up the mood pretty well. Running a business right now feels like navigating an absolute minefield. And remember those eyes-off self-driving systems Mercedes and BMW were so proud of? Turns out, not too many people really wanted them. The German automakers are hitting pause on their Level 3 systems, the ones that let you check your email in traffic jams. They're pivoting instead to a Tesla-style driver assist tech that still keeps you watching the road. A BMW spokesperson told our sibling publication, Automotive News Europe, the problem is simple. The tech costs too much and customers aren't buying it. And those are today's headlines. You can find more details on all those stories at autonews.com. The F-150 inventory shortage has been dragging on for months now, with Ford dealers struggling to keep America's best-selling vehicle on their lots. Joining us now to talk more about it is Michael Martinez, who covers Ford in the UAW for us at Automotive News and is one of my co-hosts on Weekend Drive. Mike, welcome back to Daily Drive.
Hey, Kel.
All right, Mike, walk us through what's happening on the ground at Ford dealerships right now. What are you hearing from dealers, and how are they managing with so few F-150s on their lots?
Well, I've been hearing from dealers for weeks now that this fire at this plant for Novelis back in September is still an issue for them. They're telling me they really haven't experienced anything like this outside of COVID. F-150 is the crown jewel of Ford's F-Series line, and it's been the best-selling vehicle for 49 straight years, so it's a very protected model. And typically, dealers have months and months of inventory of these things. Now they don't. And what's interesting is that the data is backing up what I've been hearing anecdotally. Catalyst IQ, the data firm Automotive News uses for a number of different things, found out that F-150 inventory has dropped to around 57 days supply, up from well over 100 before this Novelis fire in September. So a pretty significant drop. And what's happening for customers when they're trying to buy a truck, first of all, they probably won't be able to find exactly what they want. So they'll have to order one, and it could take months to arrive. But what's happening for dealers is that they're trying to swap inventory and do trades, but they're having to go further and further out. So Catalyst IQ did some digging and found in a number of major markets, a particular market will be really low on trucks, and it will affect the surrounding other metro regions because dealers will be pouring inventory into that one. So they used Omaha, Nebraska as an example. Inventory is down 63%. And in all the metro regions around it, it's down significantly too. But what's key is that the price of the vehicles that are still available is going up. For example, the entry level XL model is up about $5,000 since the fires. So customers are having to pay more and look farther out, and that's not a great recipe.
Now, Ford says they're ramping up production to make up for this, skipping summer shutdowns, adding shifts. How confident are dealers that this will actually get them back to normal inventory levels anytime soon?
It's interesting. They're pretty confident and they're pretty understanding. The couple I talked to mentioned that, outside of having multiple suppliers for the same component, which doesn't typically happen because of cost concerns, they don't really see any way that Ford could have gotten around this. It's just the sort of black swan event that happened again back in September. They were hoping to be done with it by now, but remember there was a second fire a few months later that really set back recovery efforts. So they're understanding that, hey, Ford couldn't really have prepared for this or gotten around it, but they think things are going to get better from here, from this time. Actually, Ford's been telling their dealers April's sort of going to be the trough. This is where we're going to hit the low point. And then in May, you'll see inventory start to tick back up. And hopefully around the July, August timeframe, things will be more back to normal. They've said publicly they expected the second half of the year to be a lot better. So I think there's optimism right now. Dealers still have some trucks on the lots. It's maybe getting close to a crisis point, but we're not quite there yet, with the hope that it should level out pretty soon.
Always insightful. Michael Martinez, thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks, Cal.
Coming up, Roland Berger's Stefan Kies discusses how the Iran war is threatening helium supplies critical for semiconductor manufacturing. That's next on Daily Drive.
Route 1 Fusion is an expanded digital retail solution built to enhance your dealership's customer engagement and improve the results of your online efforts. Many customers expect a fast, online-friendly experience and prefer clarity early in the process, especially if they have a vehicle to trade. So ask yourself, are your current digital retailing tools helping shoppers understand their trade-in value and helping your team move deals forward faster? With a subscription to Fusion, you can benefit from its trade-in valuation feature that empowers customers to estimate the value of their current vehicle early in the process. This helps customers arrive in-store better prepared, make expectations around payments and equity more realistic, and move conversations and decisions faster. The result is higher quality leads, more productive interactions, and a smoother transition from online to in-store. And trade-in valuation is just one example of how Route 1 Fusion can expand your digital retail experience. Fusion also supports other features that include appointment scheduling so customers can view your availability and book a time. Pre-qualification tools with subscription provide quick, credit-based payment options, and production product presentations allow you to present products earlier to help customers explore their options. Schedule a personalized demo to see how Fusion can help generate more opportunities from your online traffic. Visit route1.com/fusion to connect with Route 1 today.
Welcome back to Daily Drive. I'm Kellen Walker. The Iran war has disrupted oil supplies, but there's another critical shortage the auto industry is facing: helium. It's essential for manufacturing semiconductors, and supply is getting tight. Stefan Kies is senior partner at Roland Berger North America. He spoke with our own Molly Boygon on the latest episode of the Automotive News Shift podcast about how this helium shortage could impact the industry. Here's a piece of that conversation.
Lots of people have been following closely the constraints around oil supply because of the conflict in Iran, but Roland Berger contends that there's additional constraints on helium supply. So what is going on with all of that?
So there are a number of commodities which are directly impacted by the Iran crisis and by the oil shortage because they are a byproduct of oil refinery. Helium is one of the most important byproducts that's impacting the automotive industry at the moment, specifically because of the importance of helium for the semiconductor industry. So if you take global production for helium, about 47% of that comes here from North America, But 33% of global helium supply actually comes from the Middle East, most importantly from Qatar. There are a couple of other minor sources. Russia produces about 10% of helium, but of course has significant sanctions and restrictions for export at the moment. You have Western Africa produce about 6% of helium. You have China producing about 3%. But you see how quickly the numbers basically go down because none of these other countries are able to ramp up production significantly. So the crisis that you have in Iran is currently impacting helium production and is starting now to impact helium supply for the critical industries. Because one of the key properties of helium is that it's a light gas and you can't store it. It tends to air out even from in the tightest of containers. So the longest you can typically store helium is somewhere between 2 and 3 months. After 2 months, you already get a significant deterioration of the quality because you're left with the smaller atoms. And we are now basically 2 months into the conflict, and therefore semiconductor facilities are really struggling at the moment to keep sufficient helium supply available.
That's a helpful overview. So production is constrained, and whatever helium was able to be stockpiled, is basically running out. And as you said, it can't be stockpiled for longer than 2 to 3 months. So what is the timeline in terms of when we can expect, if things continue on as they are now, to see significant impacts on the sort of downstream products from helium production? In other words, those intensely relying on semiconductors, ADAS and autonomy, EVs. When can we expect to see meaningful delays in some of those product timelines?
So you need helium primarily for a couple of different applications. You need it for cooling in the wafer production process. You need it for cooling during the load lock process. And then you also need it as a carrier for the edging process. And there isn't an easily available substitute for any of those because helium is an inert gas, meaning it doesn't react to anything. And that is absolutely critical to avoid contaminations during the semiconductor manufacturing process. So once the fabs start running low on helium, they will have to scale back manufacturing. When exactly that will happen depends a little bit on the individual installation. It depends where they are sourcing their helium from. So again, for example, North American fabs are much less impacted by the Middle Eastern production because they source directly here from North America. But especially the East and Southeast Asian facilities are already starting to run low on helium supply. And I think we will see production shortages starting in the next weeks.
In the next weeks. Wow. So not months, not years, but weeks.
No, we are really talking about weeks at this point. And then the question is, how quickly will the strait open again? How quickly will some of the supply resume? And how quickly can we get the helium out of the Middle East to the facilities where they are needed? But it's also important to consider that about 20% of helium production in the Middle East, specifically in Qatar, has been damaged. Some of those repairs will take weeks to months. Some of those repairs, specifically in Qatar, where we had an Iranian attack on one of the largest refineries, will take literally years in order to fix. So we're going to see a global shortage of helium for a sustained period.
Are there specific ADAS or EV features that are particularly at risk of delay or cancellation because of the helium shortages?
You're predominantly looking at three major components. You're looking at high-end ADAS logic chips. You're looking at complex memory chips, so predominantly DRAM chips, which already have been short because of the AI demand in those chips. And you're looking at power electronics. Those are the most critical ones that have the most demand have the most complex manufacturing processes, and as a consequence also have the most demand for helium. So I would expect that we will start seeing some shortages from component supply in those specific applications. This is not going to shut down the auto industry as a whole, but it may shift certain mix. It may delay the delivery of high-end ADAS systems. It may also shift the OEMs a little bit back towards ICE and hybrids, where you have a no or lower requirement power electronics and can continue to produce.
Stefan Keese spoke with our own Molly Boygon on the latest episode of the Automotive News Shift podcast. You can hear the full conversation on Shift, available now wherever you get your podcasts. That's Daily Drive for today. I'm Kellen Walker. Thanks to Automotive News executive producer Jake Neer, as well as our own Michael Martinez for his reporting today. We also had reporting from Peter Siegel of our sibling publication, Automotive News Europe. You can get the latest news on supply chain challenges, semiconductor manufacturing, and everything happening in the auto industry at autonews.com. We'd love to hear from you. Let us know what you think of the show and the topics we covered today. Send us an email at dailydrive@autonews.com or leave us a voicemail at 313-444-2774. And if you enjoy the podcast, remember to like, leave a review, and subscribe so you never miss an episode.